from speeding up the game to hyperspeed by changing your computer's time, instantly fixing your tool's durability, entering nether portals when they aren't even there, climbing walls without ladders, getting infinite wood from boats, creating an infinite arrow source, to moving and crafting while your inventory is open, duplicating items by placing a sign at max build limit, breaking bedrock with seeds, teleporting from bedrock level to build limit instantly, and these strange terrain generation bugs called monoliths. Minecraft Alpha truly was one of a kind. Minecraft Alpha is home to the most hidden of Minecraft bugs, the likes of which simply weren't possible in beta and later versions. Many of these bugs aren't documented well and are mostly forgotten, with them only being present in decade-old YouTube videos or forgotten forum posts. Today, we uncover Minecraft's hidden bugs from Alpha. In Minecraft Alpha 1.0.2, when you went into third-person perspective, rain particles would appear around you no matter where you were, or if it were raining or not. Going back into normal first-person perspective would remove them. This was fixed in Alpha 1.0.5. In Alpha 1.0.3, due to the way players used to stand up in minecarts like so, the player's hitbox was bigger, and as such they could take suffocation damage from 2-block high spaces. In these early Alpha versions, you could also move while the inventory was open like so. You could jump and even craft whilst moving, which would make these interesting hand movements. This was fixed in Alpha 1.0.15. Up until Minecraft Alpha 1.0.5, when you destroyed stone and stone-related blocks with the very last of your pickaxe's durability, the stone or stone-related block would not drop for some reason. One bug introduced in Alpha 1.0.1, which lasted all the way up until Minecraft Java full release, was the score bug. Whenever you died, rather than an actual numerical score be displayed, this was displayed instead. Hilariously, the score feature worked all the way up until this point in Minecraft Alpha, and then just broke for well over a year. In Alpha 1.0.14, the jukebox recipe would give a bookshelf instead, likely a placeholder Notch forgot to remove, which would lead him to re-upload the version shortly. Since early Alpha introduced snow, there were quite a few interesting oversights from Notch in their regard. First of all, there was a bug where sand and gravel's gravity would just stop working when placed on snow. Second of all, up until Minecraft Alpha 1.0.15, you could place a block where an entity was, if it had a layer of snow on it. Of course, this would suffocate the mob. Now, you could do this to yourself as well. Check out the off-centered third-person camera as well here, by the way. And since at the time there was a 25% chance certain Minecraft worlds would be permanently snowing, you could create this weird method of player suffocation as well as block towering. On the topic of snow-related bugs, snow blocks used to give 4 to 6 snowballs when broken, but could be crafted with only 4 snowballs, creating an infinite snow glitch, which sounds cooler than it is. Most of these snow-related bugs were patched in Alpha 1.1.1. Another bug present in Alpha 1.0.15 is the fact that when you would drop items, they just, well, disappeared. And no, they weren't invisible, as even saving and quitting wouldn't show them on the ground, they would just vanish. In one of the strangest bugs I've seen, up until Minecraft Alpha 1.1.0, torches could be placed on leaves, but only if the game's graphics were set to fast, not fancy. If you place torches on some trees, then switch back to fancy graphics, the torches would remain on the leaves as well, but would break if updated. Moving on to Alpha 1.1 now. First of all, in Alpha 1.1.0, according to the wiki, there was some bug which allowed the player to force the camera's movement inside walls. This would lead Notch to re-upload it 3 days later. Now, I have no idea what this means. I think the wiki is referring to some sort of third-person wallhack exploit, which you can do on modern versions still, but I have no idea how to replicate that in this version, so let me know in the comments if you have any more info. You can, however, exploit a similar bug with sand or gravel, giving you X-ray. Alpha 1.1.1 is a pretty famous Minecraft version, as it had a unique game-breaking bug where the code of the game would set the display's gamma and contrast values to 0, resulting in the screen turning into a big subscribe button, which players at the time could press to subscribe to up-and-coming YouTuber TheMisterEpic 10 years in advance. No pressure, of course. Anyways, this bug caused the screen to turn completely grey, and as such, this version of the game was only available for roughly 3.5 hours before Notch would release 1.1.2 to fix it. In Alpha 1.1.2 version 1, you could actually hold items in your inventory crafting slots like so, giving you some additional inventory space. Stairs also looked very weird in this version, and if you placed a block on top of them, would convert them into a full block. In this version, you could also sometimes break blocks like torches if you lined it up correctly with the pause menu and then left-clicked to resume game. Since you could not interact with the top half of doors for some reason, you could place blocks through them like so, as well as hit mobs and entities. You could also get half doors by placing them next to cacti, which is odd. And speaking of odd, check out the cursed Minecraft-esque bugs in the game's GUIs, which for some reason rendered behind like so in Alpha 1.1.2 version 1. And if you wanted to be able to move while your inventory was open again, like in the bug showcased earlier in this video, you could do so by clicking W and A or D at the same time as opening your inventory, which would occasionally cause you to continuously walk in that direction while your inventory was open and even when it was closed. In Alpha 1.2.0, a bug was fixed where items such as furnaces and stairs would not face the same direction as the player when placed. Interestingly, chests, which also had this issue, would still not place the right direction well into beta. In Alpha 1.2.0 version 1, the famous player hurt ooh sound did not work at all. In that same version, when a player died, their items would also disappear. Placing signs on cacti used to outright crash the game, which was patched in Alpha 1.2.1. If you wanted to ear rape players on multiplayer, Alpha 1.2.1 version 1 was the version for you, as in this version, the ooh sound effect would play every game tick of taking damage, roughly 20 times per second, and this worked for not only players, but mobs as well. This was fixed in Alpha 1.2.2, which also fixed the bug that plagued almost all of Alpha, whereby the Minecraft options and main title screen GUI would bug out when you resized the game. In Alpha 1.2.3 version 4, if you held sneak and moved around for a couple seconds, then unsneaked, it would play all the sounds that were meant to be silenced during the sneak in rapid succession. Arrows also would not deal damage and would bug out when shot into a mob or player. And when shot into the ground or walls, they would also create an infinite arrow source, which if you stood next to, would rapidly fill up your inventory until it was full. Pretty funny stuff. You could also type /home in this version of the game on multiplayer servers to teleport to spawn, which was removed a couple days later. Furthermore, creepers up to this version did not have a proper animation upon blowing up, sort of just exploding right in your face when they got too close. This was fixed in Alpha 1.2.3 version 5, but unfortunately due to Notch leaving code in the game, also would be a version which only spawned creepers, no other mobs, which was promptly fixed one update later. A very unique bug in the last two alpha versions, 1.2.5 and 1.2.6, is if the player's name is not set properly, which always occurs now when you use the default Minecraft launcher to play these versions, the player gets named Player524, and since everybody gets named this, it's impossible to play multiplayer in these versions. Fortunately, third-party launchers and tools have corrected this, allowing for servers to still run and play the final versions of Alpha. And speaking of the last version of Alpha, Alpha 1.2.6, this version fixed the bug where the item was used when interacting with an interactable block, which would lead to some interesting moments if you happen to be holding a lava bucket. We are now going to move on to some of the more interesting or major bugs from Alpha, which include a lot of bugs which were never patched and still worked into beta or later. First of all, if you dropped an item on a multiplayer server, you may notice that you pick it up very quickly, much quicker than even single player. As it turns out, due to this, you could drop a tool and as soon as you would pick it back up, its durability would be entirely fixed, meaning you never had to worry about your tools breaking in Alpha multiplayer. And it wouldn't be an old Minecraft version without a duplication exploit, and oh boy, there were quite a few. In Alpha 1.0.17 version 2, and working on multiplayer servers as well, if you opened a chest and hovered the item over your inventory, then closed your inventory without actually placing the item into the chest, it would dupe the item. When you closed your inventory, the hovered item would drop onto the ground, but reopening your inventory, and the item would be right there waiting. This was a bit of an inconsistent dupe though, and sometimes items would disappear, or tools would break after one use. In Alpha 1.1.2, you could go up to Minecraft's build limit, Y level 127, and then place blocks you want to duplicate, such as diamond blocks, iron blocks, or gold blocks, then save the game, mine the blocks again, crash the game by placing a sign at Y level 128, another funny bug by the way, which would prevent the game from saving the chunk data. Upon relogging, you would notice your inventory was still changed, but the chunk wasn't, and the blocks were still there, effectively duping them. Dupes like this were stupid easy in Alpha, due to the fact that inventory player data was saved when crashing the game, but the world data was not, meaning you could simply throw your items on the ground, save the game, pick up the items and crash the game, which would save your inventory but not the blocks. The same principle the version of the dupe we just talked about exploits, but instead we crash the game with Alt F4 or Task Manager. Lots of other inventory dupes existed in alpha and beta. For example, there was a bug in early beta where you could drop an item like a sword with a stack count of 1 and then spam Q and pick up the item again, and it would sometimes lead to the creation of a 0 stack item, which is an infinite item as the item's count is below 1. Let's move away from dupes now though. In all alpha versions, there was an interesting exploit you could use to break bedrock. By placing a dirt block below a piece of bedrock and right-clicking it with a hoe to turn it into farmland, and then placing a seed, it would instantly break the bedrock block like so. This is one of the first ever bedrock breaking exploits discovered way back in 2010, by accident mind you, as the original uploader, Frozen Fire 1997, got lost in a cave and needed food, and decided to create a farm at bedrock level, only to accidentally break a bedrock block. This was fixed in beta, but with this method you still couldn't access the void. Luckily, another bedrock breaking exploit was introduced in Alpha 1.2.0 and allowed you to utilize the recently added nether portals to break bedrock. Now I'm going to showcase this to you in modern Minecraft where it still works because it's much easier to set up, but basically by manipulating the location a nether portal could generate at, you could force it to generate at bedrock level and replace the bottom layer of bedrock with this obsidian portal frame. However, by far the craziest bug that worked in Minecraft Alpha, all the way up until Beta 1.5, was this. If you set your computer's time forward, it would make your Minecraft speed up like crazy. You could move insanely fast, jump fast, mine basically instantly. It would make mobs and other entities move at hyperspeed. It would even make the game's day-night cycle speed up as well. This would last for about a minute, and as the minute went on, the game speed would gradually decrease. Hilariously, this could also work on multiplayer servers if you were the one running the server off of your computer, of course. If you happen to die around mobs at night, good luck ever respawning by the way. And no, as players who discovered this in 2010 mentioned, the longer you set your clock ahead does not influence how long the Minecraft hyperspeed lasts, unfortunately. Due to what seems like the player's hitbox overlapping with the corner of blocks, you can interact with blocks from a corner. Here's a good example. This lava here does damage to me, even though I'm not standing in it. Cool uses of this method include entering another portal while not even being within the portal block, or creating a cool escalator without ladders using water. In Alpha, breaking a minecart would lead you to fall one block through the ground, which, like the logout technique in our last video, could be used to enter certain areas you aren't meant to. And since we have a method of going down, we also need one for going up, and fortunately, if you log off in a closed door, it will teleport you above the door when you log back in. And this didn't just teleport you one block up, it would teleport you up into a free space, meaning if you filled in all the blocks above a door, you could teleport yourself super high. A very useful elevator. Etho showcased in a video back in 2010 a wood generator or duper, where due to a bug where boats would occasionally drop more items than they should, you could infinitely dupe wood using a 4 cactus setup like this, where the boat is instantly broken by the cacti diagonally next to them. This was really useful at the time for obtaining wood, and as you can see from Etho's video, was a very popular method. With 10 or so boats, you could have yourself 2 stacks of planks and over a stack of sticks, a more than double on your initial investment. One of the most important bugs at the time was the rail booster, whereby having an additional minecart parallel to the main minecart would boost the main minecart running alongside it. Now, back in Alpha, powered rails did not exist, meaning the only way to gain speed was through this method, or furnace minecarts, which even at the time, nobody used. And as such, it was common to see these little minecart booster sections in early Alpha players' minecart systems. Many of you might remember the triple chest bug from last video. Well, as it turns out, in Alpha you can break Minecraft block placement restrictions if you place a block in water or fire. This allowed you to do a few more interesting combinations than just the triple chest. And finally, up until Alpha 1.2.0, occasionally glitched areas of terrain known as monoliths stretching all the way up until height limit would generate due to an error in the game's Perlin noise generator. And that about wraps it up. Be sure to check out my video about beta bugs, and let me know if you want to see a video about even more obscure inf-dev and in-dev bugs. Be sure to subscribe and join my Discord. Thank you all so much for watching.